Okay, welcome back everybody. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add some validation. What I've done in the meantime is I've added a clear button. So if we write count to 5 and clear it, if we write count to 10, it will count. Now what's interesting is that it only makes it to 9. So just as a point, I'm going to make it validate so it cannot count to 0, but it can count to 1, and it cannot count to 10 because there's not enough room on the screen. It can only count to 9. So I'm going to validate it so if a number greater than 9 or less than 1 is entered, it won't do the count, and it will throw up an error message. Okay. No real reason other than, you know, it only fits 9 on the screen, and you can't count from 1 to 0 in increments of steps of 1. Okay, so we can only count up. Right, so the first thing I've got to do now, validation always foxes a lot of people, a lot of students, when you say, oh, we're going to look at validation today, and they say, well, we've never done validation before. What I always say to students is that pretty much most of the programs you'll write at the beginning stages of a programming career will contain 3 logical structures. In fact, many programs do contain just these 3 logical structures, which is sequence, selection, and iteration. Now, we've looked at sequence, we've looked at selection in previous videos, and this is your introduction to iteration. So we're going to revisit some selection now and use that as a validating tool. Okay, so what do we need to look at? Well, we need to look at int num. So if int num, and what do we need to say? Well, if it's greater than 9, we don't want to do the calculation. And if int num, right, int num is less than 1, then we don't want to do the calculation as well. So sorry, my mistake, or got my logical structures mixed up there. So we've got 2 validation checks. If int num goes bigger than 9, or, make that clear again, it's or, if int number goes less than 1, then we don't want to do the calculation. Okay, so I'm going to just write a simple message box to say that there's an error. Okay, I think this could be the first time we've looked at message boxes. Quite a simple command really. MSG box message box, no equal sign, then just in brackets and in quotes, double quotes, whatever the message you want to put in there. So the message will come up error, and Visual Basic will do all the rest for us, and you'll see how that works in a minute. Okay. Now, if it's not greater than 9 or less than 1, then it's going to be a number from 1 to 9. So I do want to do my loop, and then that's the end of the if statement. So if I just tab some of this across so it becomes a bit more clearer, and you can see, just tidy this up a bit so you can see it a bit better. So I declare my variables, I convert my value from text box into an integer, place it in int num, and then I look at int num and I say if it's greater than 9, or if int num is less than 1, then I'm going to send up a message box, else I will do the looping part. Okay, so if we just run that, and if we put 5 in there, it runs. If we clear that, if we put 0 in there, there's our message box. Okay, if we put 9 in there, it runs, it'll accept a 9. If we put 10 in there, there's our message again. Okay, now what happens if we put a letter in? We get a crash. If we debug that, basically Visual Basic is saying to us, well, I can't convert T into a number, So we need to add extra validation to prevent it from accepting non-numeric values. So in the next video, that's what we're going to be looking at. Okay, thank you.